let's talk about Kaspa. I took a look at it, and it seems pretty promising. Now, I'm not obviously all in on it. I don't have any Kaspa myself. It's kind of like it's a DAG, Ghost DAG protocol that has the proof of work kind of like governance mechanism. It claims to be Bitcoin 2.0. I'll talk about that later. I don't think any project should actually claim to be Bitcoin 2.0, but the technology behind Kaspa does actually look pretty enticing. It does, well, at launch, it did 1 block per second. And of course, right now on the testnet recently, it has achieved 10 blocks per second. Now, at 10 blocks per second, it can handle several thousand transactions a second, like 4,000, I believe, TPS, because when it first launched with 1 block per second, it did 400 TPS. Now, 10 blocks per second, 4,000 TPS. They want to scale it up at first to 32 blocks per second, or that would be around 12,000 TPS with visions of 100 blocks per second, which of course translates into something like 60,000 TPS or something like that. Anyways, it's a lot of TPS, more than pretty much necessary for any application or any kind of ecosystem. So the scaling does not seem to be a problem if it can already reach 10 TPS on the testnet, the scaling is not going to be an issue like Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's perfectly fine. So they've got that part covered. DAG and Nakamoto consensus, the security is pretty good. I have not seen any breaches or hacks for Kaspa. It's been around for about a year, so the security is pretty good as well. Now, the thing is about having a lot of blocks per second, that does generate a lot of data. Bitcoin's chain is already huge at 1 block per 10 minutes. And even if your block is significantly smaller than Bitcoin, generating 10 blocks per minute will actually produce a lot of data. And if your blocks are really, really small, it can't handle that many transactions per block. So that kind of counter defeats the purpose of having a lot of blocks per second. So Kaspa will actually generate a lot of data that needs to be stored and archived somewhere. But with the implementation of their pruning nodes, that does actually take care of the problem for most people that actually want to run Kaspa. I think if they do 100 kilobyte blocks, the most the archival nodes per year will have to do is about 3 terabytes, which if you have enough servers, it shouldn't be a huge problem for Kaspa. We'll see how that actually works out. As we go forward in years. It's only been up for about a year, so we don't really know kind of the technicalities and how this will work out in the long-term future. But from what I see, it should actually be fine. It shouldn't be something that regular investors or regular users should actually worry about. Now, the other cool thing about Kaspa is that it did have a fair launch. That means the team and the developers don't have a huge amount of Kaspa on them. And because it did a fair launch, the SEC may not be able to sue them. Now, I'm not going to say anything is SEC proof because the SEC can technically come back and sue anything, and they can find some ridiculous excuse to sue whoever the hell they want. We've actually seen them do that. They just rewrite the rules, rewrite the definitions. They're the SEC, and unless the judges or Congress stops them, there's really nothing else that can actually stop them. But it might be harder for them to actually sue something like Kaspa if it actually had a fair launch, because then the coins are fully distributed and they can't really make that Howey test thing actually work out, because then without the ICO, the SEC may not actually have that much to go after, especially if the coins are equally distributed and there's not one party or one foundation that's just selling coins to fund the company. Now, the opposite side of that is that there is no foundation treasury, more or less, unless people donate. If you do a fair launch, distribute all the coins. Treasuries, a lot of time, is going to be kind of lacking. If you look at Ripple, they essentially just sell their giant stock of XRP to fund their company, and other projects do the same. Without that ability, you might have problems funding projects. So we'll see how they actually attract developers. I haven't heard of too many big DeFi projects or anything coming onto Kaspa, and that's one of the things that I'm a little bit worried about for these chains, the new chains. Yes, Kaspa has a founder that's fairly well known. Yes, the technology is good, but you don't have smart contracts yet. Now, it's only been up for a year, so they've got time. So they actually need to get smart contracts up by the time we have the next altcoin bull run. If they don't have smart contracts by this time next year, then I don't think they're a good choice for the next bull run, because no matter how good your technology is and how much hype you can generate from it, which I think Kaspa can actually generate a decent amount of hype because there's a lot of people talking about it, it's not really going to mean all that much unless you have DeFi to lock in the TVL. And DeFi does require smart contracts. So they don't have smart contracts yet. I'm not really sure when they're going to get them, but they should have them by next July. If they have them by next July and they have the DeFi developers, they have the NFT developers, they've attracted the ecosystem, then I would be very, very bullish on Kaspa. Right now, I'm only kind of bullish at this point because the technology actually does seem pretty good. The founder is fairly well known. He's mentioned in several white papers for Ethereum and other projects. So they have a good pedigree and a good foundation to actually go on. But they actually need to show us more in terms of like apps, more in terms of like DeFi, and get those smart contracts online. So that's really what I'm going to be looking at, the smart contracts, and is there any DeFi development by the time the next bull run comes around? Because you need to be in that TVL competition in the next bull run. If you're not in that TVL competition for the next bull run, we're going to have to wait 4 more years for a next bull run, and we'll talk about that in 4 years during the next bear market. So getting that TVL up, getting those smart contracts in is going to be pretty critical. Kaspa actually looks pretty promising, but one thing about the whole Bitcoin 2.0 thing, I don't think any project should try to be Bitcoin 2.0 or Ethereum 2.0. Here's the thing, no one actually wants Bitcoin 2.0. They're fine with Bitcoin 1.0 being Bitcoin. Because see, like every other type of consensus actually works better than Bitcoin. And if people wanted Bitcoin 2.0, they would have adopted LTC or BCH by now, or one of the various Bitcoin forks by now. Because every single one of those Bitcoin forks actually works more efficiently than Bitcoin. And when you talk about POW security, it's all about the hash rate, right? As long as you have hash rate, you really can't get hacked. But if your hash rate drops, you're very vulnerable. So Bitcoin 2.0 isn't a thing. Neither is Ethereum 2.0. That's why none of those Ethereum killers have actually killed Ethereum, because people don't really want Ethereum 2.0. They can want Cardano or HBAR or Solana or Near or whatever, but they don't want Ethereum 2.0. They're fine with the Ethereum they have right now. They're on Ethereum not because it's wonderful, but because it actually has all the money, and that's really not going to change anytime soon. So the thing is, like, stop trying to build the 2.0s of these things. I'm generally not, that fond of proof of work consensus projects, but Kaspa, since it's built on top of the DAG, the Ghost DAG, I do believe it has potential, and I do think that I am sort of bullish on it, but I have to wait to see like when their smart contracts come out, because we've seen a lot of like, we've seen a bunch of DAG projects like HBAR's, one of my favorites, but you also have like original DAG, IOTA, and stuff like that. They all those have like really great technology, but the thing is, like, they haven't really gotten big yet because of the lack of ecosystem in a lot of those projects and the lack of TVL. So we're gonna see if Kaspa can actually do better than them in that direction. It's all about getting the developers, building the community, and getting the TVL, getting the DeFi and the NFT ecosystem in there. And as long as Kaspa does that, it should actually do fine. But watch carefully, and I think that's what you really need to pay attention to. Can they get the smart contracts, and can they get the DeFi before this time next year? So let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you, and have a nice day.